Ciao.
Grazie. Sì, sì.
Sì.
Buongiorno, Radoslav, good morning, come in. Questo penso che si possa ridurre iconcine. Questo possiamo fare così. Facciamo questo, vediamo. Did you relax yesterday night? Did you relax yesterday night and go working a little bit?
It was not possible because of the netting in the hotel. I come to.
Grazie.
Bene.
Sì, sì, sì. Allora, se spilla un attimo li facciamo passare direttamente. Se li spilli un attimo il bollo li passiamo, tanto è il tempo che... Sì, sì, ma mo dovrebbe venire il caffè, un piccolo welcome coffee è previsto, quindi mo sta arrivando. Sì. Vediamo se si vede. Bojana, good morning. Do you hear me?
Hello.
We are almost ready to start, just 5 minutes.
Okay.
Okay, thanks. Dove più... Sì, sì. Pedro, good morning. Buenos días.
Hola, buenos días. Good morning.
¿Tú me ves?
No.
¿Me ves o no?
No.
Yo te veo, pero te escucho poco. Dime si tú me ves, por favor. Questi rumori. Ok.
Anche.
Allora, fai vedere Claudia. Grazie.
Андрей, ако ставим слушалице, ako stavim slušalice da samo ja njih čujem, da li ja mogu da pričam da oni ne čuju? Ja mislim da ti radi slušalice, ali ja mogu mikrofon njemu.
Dear discussant, good morning everybody. I thank you in advance for your participation. I just want to say that here in Italy we will start in a few minutes. There will be first a little introduction in Italy. Later, all the debate will be discussed in English language, but just the first 10 minutes it will be necessary for us to introduce the webinar in Italian language. Sorry for this, and later I will use the presentation. Do you hear me, please? Do you listen?
Yep.
Okay. Pedro, do you listen me, please?
Yes.
Okay. Thanks. From Slovakia?
Yes.
Okay, thanks.
Dove sei tu?
Diciamo, abbiamo tolto il microfono.
Allora non so sì.
No, verifica se poi ho messo le casse, forse le devo togliere perché entra da là. Allora spengo? Spengo, verifichiamo? Ok.
Hey Mariano, here, hi from Sofia.
Ragazzi che fanno, no?
Can you hear me?
Ok.
Hi Mariano, can you hear me? Patrick here from Sofia.
Valentina.
Hey Mariano, do you hear me?
Grazie, buongiorno a tutti di questa vostra partecipazione. Diamo avvio a questo che è un po' una novità anche per Cittadinanza Attiva, che è un webinar online realizzato dalla Rete Europea di Cittadinanza Attiva, Network, che mi onoro di coordinare, insieme al BIT, che è la nostra struttura che fornisce informazione, consulenze e tutela ai cittadini, dei consumatori, delle politiche sanitarie, del settore e del servizio giustizia. Questa iniziativa rientra nell'ambito di un progetto europeo, il cui acronimo è JoinU, ed è sostanzialmente un progetto, il titolo è Joint Citizens Action for a Stronger Citizens Friendly Union, che ha messo insieme un consorzio di 12 associazioni di altrettanti paesi europei per rafforzare quello che è il tema della cittadinanza europea, o per meglio per promuovere iniziative di confronto, di scambio, di riflessione sul senso comune dell'essere cittadini europei. Quindi rafforzare i diritti dei cittadini dell'Unione Europea, fornire opportunità di partecipazione civica come in questo caso, mettere in contatto cittadini ed esperienze di più paesi. L'onere di ACN è stato quello di organizzare un evento sul tema della protezione dei diritti dei cittadini. Noi l'abbiamo declinato sulla protezione dei diritti dei cittadini in quanto passeggeri viaggiatori. Questo essenzialmente per due motivi: uno, perché evidentemente nell'ambito delle nostre politiche consumeriste il tema dei trasporti e della mobilità è sempre stato un argomento centrale da anni, e devo dire che anche negli ultimi anni questa nostra vocazione su questo versante si è andata rafforzando anche a livello europeo. L'anno passato abbiamo realizzato un'iniziativa in 8 paesi europei, della quale poi daremo conto con dei dati quello che è emerso, e quindi è un segno di continuità anche questa iniziativa. Secondo motivo, perché oggi in modo non casuale ha avvio la Settimana Europea della Mobilità, che è un evento, una campagna di informazione, di sensibilizzazione sulla mobilità sostenibile, che vede realizzare in centinaia di città di tutta Europa, grazie ai soggetti dell'attivismo civico, grazie alle amministrazioni comunali, una serie di iniziative. Quindi anche noi nel nostro piccolo ne realizziamo una, ma poi soprattutto c'è una grande campagna di mobilitazione di cittadinanza attiva nel territorio italiano. Questo ultimo motivo, perché comunque il tema dei diritti dei passeggeri, eccetera, evidentemente, diciamo, proviene da quello che è uno dei diritti fondanti dell'Unione Europea, il diritto alla libera circolazione, quindi è strettamente legato alle origini dell'Unione Europea. Noi abbiamo una serie di ospiti sia qui in sala sia collegati da diversi paesi europei. Io farei una cosa molto semplice, ci presentiamo un attimino tutti quanti, così sappiamo chi siamo, quali contributi portiamo di informazioni, di esperienze, e poi due aspetti molto pratici di come verrà gestita questa giornata, e poi facciamo una full immersion di inglese, I know. Allora, inizio io con il presentarmi, ma insomma, Mariano Votta, sono coordinatore di Active Citizenship Network, e in cittadinanza attiva la responsabilità delle politiche europee. In cittadinanza attiva ci lavoro dal 2001.
Mi occupo delle politiche dell'energia e dell'ambiente e cittadinanza attiva, inoltre coordino l'osservatorio prezzi e tariffe di cittadinanza attiva e collaboro con cittadinanza attiva dal 2002.
Io sono Cinzia Poglio e lavoro ai progetti nell'area dei consumatori di cittadinanza attiva e quindi curo le attività sul territorio.
Isabella Mori, sono in cittadinanza attiva da 10 anni esatti e sono la responsabile del servizio PIT che diceva prima Mariano, che è il servizio di informazione e tutela dei consumatori di cittadinanza attiva nell'ambito della salute, delle politiche consumeristiche e della
lavoro per il servizio Lavoro Consulenza, un servizio di orientamento giuridico per i cittadini europei, una rete di esperti che è organizzata dall'ECAS, basata a Bruxelles, e in contratto con la Commissione Europea abbiamo questo servizio transnazionale di assistenza giuridica per i cittadini. Io sono responsabile per l'Italia e lavoro per il servizio da 12 anni.
Io sono Mariella Ceccarelli, vengo dalle Marche, sono la responsabile che mi occupo attualmente, sono coordinatrice regionale della scuola di cittadinanza attiva, però sono sempre occupata e continuo ad occuparmi anche delle politiche del consumatore.
Io sono Mauro Santucci, cittadinanza attiva Liguria, mi occupo del sito a Chiavari, parte anche dalla direzione nazionale.
Benvenuto, grazie.
Claudia Ciriello, sono in cittadinanza attiva dal 2005 e lavoro con l'ufficio di Isabella, quindi al FIT, però curo la parte del territorio, mi occupo di politiche consumeristiche.
Io sono Lucia Caravatta
e di conciliazione pure, sono all'esempio della conciliazione per cittadinanza attiva a livello nazionale.
Io sono Lucia Caravatta, cittadinanza attiva Lazio, mi occupo di progetti per i consumatori e del servizio, area servizi.
My name is Rato Bonk. I'm from Slovakia, representing company Justice, and I'm an invited guest here. We are active in online dispute resolution with our global multilingual platform.
Grazie. E Daria, la nostra collega che si è unita adesso, anche lei è una... Ok, ci stiamo presentando, quindi siamo in tempo anche per ascoltare la tua presentazione, così...
Dunque io la faccio in italiano.
Sì, no, non ti preoccupare, finora l'abbiamo fatta tutti in italiano. Tu sei...
Se devo Italia, se io dico sto facendo su se strani, se devo questo Italia mi dice.
Cittadino che si rivolge a noi e anche alcune procedure di conciliazione, cioè procedure straordinarie di conciliazione.
Grazie. Allora, due informazioni. Intanto facciamo girare questo foglio perché come sempre serve, no? Serve per rendicontare e quindi è un obbligo che lo evadiamo subito. La giornata si sviluppa quindi con una serie di interventi, prima di contesto, poi con esperienze di singoli paesi, grazie agli ospiti che abbiamo collegati. Il pomeriggio invece sarà dedicato in italiano, si sta mandando anche in streaming, quindi come dire, i volenterosi che ci vogliono sentire gli arditi lo possono fare, ma ci sono anche già colleghi di altri paesi che lo stanno facendo. Il pomeriggio invece sarà dedicato in modo particolare ad entrare nello specifico delle modalità e strumenti di tutela che in Italia sono diciamo, a disposizione del PIT e delle attività che fa il PIT sul versante delle tutele effettive dei cittadini pendolari che viaggiano, eccetera. Allora, doveva venire un welcome coffee qui, quando verrà siamo liberi di, no? Diciamo, di prendere quello che ci verrà offerto. Esatto. Allora, altre due paroline, due dati che ho buttato giù velocemente e poi devo fare un attimino una presentazione in inglese per poi dare avvio ai contenuti della giornata. Voi sapete tutti che il tema della mobilità è di interesse quotidiano, questo è evidente per molti cittadini europei, è un paradigma della cittadinanza europea nella misura in cui riguarda molti dei suoi aspetti: la comune identità grazie alla mobilità transazionale, i diritti dei cittadini europei in quanto passeggeri che si spostano anche da un paese all'altro, una policy condivisa a livello europeo su trasporto e mobilità è essenziale per lo sviluppo di un'economia sostenibile. Basti pensare che i trasporti sono fondamentali per la società e l'economia perché favoriscono crescita e occupazione. Questo settore impiega direttamente 10 milioni di persone e rappresenta il 5% circa del prodotto interno lordo su base europea. Sistemi di trasporto efficienti sono evidentemente alla base della competitività delle imprese e del sistema paese dei diversi paesi europei e anche sulla scena mondiale. La qualità dei servizi di trasporto ha un forte impatto sulla qualità della vita dei cittadini e noi come cittadinanza attiva ne sappiamo qualcosa perché ne realizziamo molti di analisi della qualità dei servizi. In media, questo è un altro aspetto, una famiglia europea spende il 13% circa del proprio bilancio per i prodotti e servizi legati ai trasporti. Il servizio di trasporto è evidentemente strettamente correlato alle condizioni economiche e sociali di un paese, tanto da rappresentare il sistema dei trasporti come un termine di paragone del livello di modernizzazione che viene raggiunto da un paese, nonché del livello di efficienza delle sue istituzioni, del livello di capacità di cambiamento da parte dei consumatori. Per un'organizzazione di promozione sociale, tutelare i diritti quale cittadinanza attiva, evidentemente questo tema è anche legato alla tutela dei diritti dei cittadini, passeggeri e pendolari, e di questo ne parleremo diffusamente nella giornata di oggi. Bene, adesso iniziamo a parlare in inglese, a interagire con i nostri ospiti. Good morning everybody, if you hear me, do you hear me please?
Hi, good morning.
Please say if you listen. I just introduce with some data this day. Later I will share with you the program of the day. So the Protecting Citizens' Rights, Challenges and Opportunities for European Passengers is the title of the roundtable and webinar organized in Italy by the be careful with the telephone, sorry. Organized by the European branch of Cittadinanza Attiva called Active Citizenship Network in a collaboration with its structure called PIT, Integrated Project for Citizens Protection, that provide guidance, information, and citizens protection for those citizens who have experienced inadequate in public services. The initiative is part of the European project Joint Citizens Action for a Stronger Citizen-Friendly Union, founded by the European Union through the Europe for Citizens program and implemented by a group of civic organizations for 13 countries. In the framework of the protection of citizens' rights, we have decided to talk about the protection of rights of European citizens as passengers for the following three reasons. First of all, among consumer policies promoted by Cittadinanza Attiva, the mobility and transport sector is a historic area of intervention. By years, in this field we have promoted political initiative, projects at national and European level, information campaign, and other activities that outline a new approach to the role of consumers. A role that tends to go behind the idea of delegation, once our responsibility on the part of the citizens towards consumer organizations, instead favoring a total involvement in the accessibility, quality, and care of the service of mobility and transport. In other words, our intent is indeed to promote the civic participation in the policy making and to provide citizens with procedures and instruments to protect, enforce and assert their own rights. Because, as we say, to do citizens is the best way to be citizens. The second reason, because today, in the Italian Day of Citizens for Europe, it starts a thread of cities, the European awareness campaign in which Active Citizenship Network is an official partner. The third reason, because transnational mobility is the concrete application of one of the main citizens' rights, the free movement of people guaranteed by treaties of European citizens since the beginning of the European construction. It is one of the factors which have contributed to the building of a common European identity. Starting from the daily needs of the complaints of European passengers, commuters and public transport users in the field of mobility, this webinar will be an occasion to better understand the commitment of the European institution in the field of mobility and transport and passenger rights, to share concrete experience from national countries, to promote the protection of passenger rights in the framework of European Mobility Week. Last but not least, also to promote a call to action in order to strengthen the civic participation in this field. Well, this is the introduction, and now it's a pleasure for me to introduce our online discussion in order to start with this webinar. The webinar will be divided into 3 parts. In the morning, after the framework, by intervention, institutional intervention from the Director General of the European Commission and the association who lead this project at European level, we can start to better understand the meeting and the challenge of European citizens from a civic point of view. And at the end of the morning, we can discuss how to promote the protection of passenger rights in the framework of European Mobility Week, and to share some idea, some call to action in order to improve the passenger right. So, I'm so glad to introduce you our first online discussant. His name is Petko Georgiev from the ProInfo Bulgaria.
Good morning.
Board. Good morning, Petko. We are ready to listen to you. After Petko, we will give. Yes, we hear you. After Petko, there will be the introduction of the European Commission. So, good morning, Petko. You have 10 minutes in order for your presentation.
Good morning and thank you. Welcome everybody to this seminar that we are organizing together with all our partners. Thank you, Mariano, for being such an active moving force behind the organization of this event. European mobility is definitely one of the things that are the most popular with all the European citizens. There is a lot that we can celebrate on this beginning of the week of mobility in Europe. So, especially coming from a country which used to be very, very limited, the kind of Iron Curtain, the difference between free movement of people today and what the situation used to be just a few years ago is huge, and this is all a great, great asset of the European Union, highly appreciated by the majority of European citizens, I believe. This being said, I just want to start with a couple of thoughts that I would suggest to your attention for further discussion during the seminar, focusing on a couple of problems that we are facing in the implementation of the basic right of the European citizen for free movement. So, I'll go to my presentation now. I hope I'll be able to share it with you and that you'll be able to see it. Okay, there it is. Can you see it?
Okay.
Okay, so, as we all know, free movement of persons is a fundamental right which is guaranteed to the European citizens by the treaties. This is the theory, but in practice, yes, but, well, you know, there is the Schengen barrier, which still involves some of the countries in the European. This is the European Union. This is the map of the current Schengen area. And as you can see, there are 4 members of the European Union: Bulgaria, Romania, Croatia, and Cyprus, which are still not a part of the Schengen zone. That means that for practical reasons, Bulgaria and Romania and Croatia have no open borders to the European Union. Driving from Sofia to one of my favorite spots on the Greek coast here, I have to go through customs control, I have to go through border control. Driving up to Romania, the same thing. Same thing about the Romanian citizens, same thing about the Croatian citizens. It's really not such a big administrative hassle, but it's a very psychological effect. It has a very negative psychological effect, especially keeping in mind that Bulgaria and Romania have completed all the requirements to be allowed into the Schengen zone. And by this, I mean not just it's not just my statement. There is a council, European Council conclusion in June 2011. That's what, 3 years ago? So the member states then agreed that Bulgaria and Romania comply with the acquis of Schengen, but they didn't act on it. Then there is a European Parliament resolution from October 2011, which is urging the Commission and the member states to accept Bulgaria and Romania in the Schengen zone. There have been since then dozens of citizen initiatives. But unfortunately, Bulgarian and Romanian entry into the Schengen zone has fallen victim to populist politics in a couple of countries in the European Union. Namely, the Netherlands, Germany, and France at different times have opposed the entry of Bulgaria and Romania into the Schengen zone for purely political reasons which have nothing to do with the association agreement, with the act of accession of Bulgaria and Romania, and are of purely political character. There is something I want to clarify. The reason which is being used as justification for the continued situation where our countries are not in the Schengen zone is the existence of the so-called cooperation and verification mechanism. This cooperation verification mechanism is a tool through which the European Union follows the struggle with organized crime, the struggle with corruption in Bulgaria and Romania. But as you can see from the text here, in the act of accession of Bulgaria and Romania, it says that these measures shall be lifted when the shortcomings are remedied. In other words, they can last forever. As we all know, fighting corruption is something which never ends. I mean, when does it end? When do you know, okay, is there a country where you can say, well, that's the end of it, there is no more corruption in our country? So it's a very, very political decision followed by several of the populist governments, several of the populist parties, which have influence over their national governments in a couple of the countries of the European Union. And there is nothing that Bulgaria, Romania, the Council of the European Union, European Parliament, or European citizens, for that matter, can do about it. There is one remaining strategy which is being followed by our government, at least right now. Just wait it out and wait for better times. Now, the practical implications. I had the opportunity, I'm not sure if the opportunity is the correct word here, but I had the opportunity to test how passenger rights protection works on my own experience. I was stranded a couple of months ago at Frankfurt Airport because of a strike of the security personnel the previous day. Coming from a non-Schengen country on a connecting flight, I had to go through security once again, and that turned out to be impossible because of the huge number of people waiting online, because of the problems that had been assembled the previous several days from many, many delayed flights and so on. But nevertheless, I thought that as a European citizen, I'm entitled to some kind of protection and compensation for the fact that I was denied boarding on that day to my connecting flight to Barcelona. So, being very enthusiastic about the enforcement of European passenger rights, I went to the site of the Commission, which has this excellent mobile application, which tells you everything about your rights. Turns out that there is a procedure which is quite swift and should be working okay. I filed the necessary documents, I sent them to the necessary airlines, and I will share with you the result of the test drive. 2 firm rejections by Iberia and Vueling, who were co-sharing the flight, and 1 thank you note from the National Authority of Germany, which probably started, I don't know, I'm not a part of it, the citizens have no access to that process, but it must have started an infringement procedure against Vueling. But to me, as a stranded passenger who had to cancel his plans for Barcelona, look for another flight to another destination, and so on, I must say this was really a little bit of a disappointment. No compensation whatsoever, no attempt to guarantee any passenger rights. Just, in my case, really a possibility to deepen my interest in European passenger rights. So, these are 2 of the points that I wanted to make at the beginning of this webinar. First one is about the political problems faced by passengers in countries that are outside the Schengen zone, who still face delays at borders and still cannot move freely to the Schengen zone from outside for reasons which are really beyond the control of civil society or even of the governments in the European Union. That's happening again despite the decisions of the European Union bodies, despite the resolution of Parliament, despite the position of the European Council and so on, just because of the fact that a couple of governments in the European Union do not want to do not want to include these countries in the Schengen zone. Again, it's a very populist move because it has nothing to do with the actual rights of Bulgarian, Romanian, Croatian or Cypriot citizens to go and work in these countries. So it does not resolve any of the problems that the Netherlands has with illegal immigration. It's just a political move which can help a party get an extra vote or 2 or maybe more, I don't know, but does not really resolve any of the problems that these countries might be facing. And the other one, the excellent framework for the compensation of EU passenger rights, which is in place, is actually not being implemented. The final phase of it is not under citizen control, and to be honest, I explored all the possible options to look at what's happening with the possible continuation of this situation with the denied boarding, but I think I've reached the dead end, and I'm afraid I'm not the only one. On that day in Frankfurt, there were thousands of us. It would have been very, very interesting to see how many of these thousands have been able to get a compensation of some kind. I'm afraid on that flight from Frankfurt to Vueling, there must have been at least another 150 people like me who couldn't make it. But yes, okay, it takes experience, it takes some practice, it takes serious consideration. I hope that we can do all together something that these procedures be improved in the future. We can come up with something which will help passengers stranded at airports or passengers stranded at internal European borders get a better experience in the future. Thank you once again, and I will be watching the debate online with great interest. Thanks.
Thanks, Petko. Thanks for your picture from the East of Europe, the Schengen Treaty related with the application in several countries, and also for your personal experience as passengers. In order to talk about the passenger right and the needs of commuters of passengers around Europe, I want to say that later we will present a civic research in which we have collected more than 4,000 citizens, the point of view of more than 4,000 citizens that every day use the transport and move them. But now to talk about the commitment of the European institution in the framework of the mobility and transport, and with a specific focus on the passenger right, it's a pleasure for me to introduce you a professional from the Director General of Mobility and Transport. His name is Pedro José García Gracia. He is a Spanish professional working for the European Commission. Thanks again, Pedro, for your presentation, to stay here today. I know you are a lot of event also in this week, but please, we are waiting to listen to you.
Grazie mille, Mariano. Buongiorno a tutti.
Bueno, si tú hablas en italiano es perfecto aquí, pero we have to respect also the online discussion, as you know.
Yeah, mi piacerebbe tantissimo parlare in italiano, ma I'm going to speak in English. I'm going to do my presentation. I will try to put, as Mr. Georgiev has done, my presentation online to follow the discussion. I will give a brief presentation on what the Commission has been done up to now in both sides, regulations and promotion or raising awareness of passenger rights, because both things are very important. And I would like to also say something to what the very interesting thing and experience and Mr. Georgiev had in with his flight. But let me check if you could see my presentation. Could you see it?
We have to wait some an instant. Yes, now. Yes, we see. Great.
Let's see. Yep.
Yes.
But active citizenship network and you, Cittadinanza Attiva, you've been very active in protecting citizen rights, and in between citizen rights, we got passenger rights, And we've got also a word that I've listened today that is quite important, and not many people understand, that goes hand in hand with the passenger rights, which is mobility. The European Union understood, or at least the European Commission, quite in the early 90s, which passenger rights should be a part of mobility of one of the freedoms of one of the important freedoms movement of citizens, and that is why the European Union now is the only integrated area with passenger rights for all modes of transport. We're mainly probably talking about the flight, the air sector, because well, it was the first one in 1991, with some. It happened some years before the next one, the next regulation, rail, was entered into force. That was in 2009. It was adopted in 2007, but it was entered into force in 2009. Then the ship regulation in late 2012, and the last one, bus and coach. That means that we got some standards as a passengers, some as a citizens, some set of rights, which includes non-discrimination, information, assistance, and compensation. These are basic rights for all of us. One of the things that maybe I introduce now, one thing is to do with European law, and the other thing is implementing or enforcing the law. This is what maybe is the challenge for now. The European Commission realized that it's not enough doing all these regulations, but raising passenger right awareness. Why? Because if we don't know that we have such rights, we cannot claim for that. As Petko, Mr. Petko, George was mentioning, if you don't know that you have compensation, you have the right to be compensated, you are not going to ask as a citizen, as a passenger. And see the figures that we got now. Only 34% of passengers, of travelers, are aware of the rights. And you see that we travel a lot. This is the latest figures I found, but we travel in Europe 12,000, almost 13,000 kilometers, and 1 billion holiday trips. It's only holiday trips. Imagine that this is added up to the business trips, and indeed, freedom of movement is quite important. It's quite important for us. What the Commission did, this commitment to promote passenger rights, started in 2009, maybe a little bit later than expected. It was the first time. It was not a proper campaign. Let's say that it was only posters for the air sector informing about the passenger rights. But in 2010, there was the first real organized campaign to promote passenger rights. And this is, you could see the logo that was created at that time, and the leitmotif, your passenger rights at hand. And at that time, it was only for the air and rail sector, because there were only the two regulations that they were adopted. It lasted 2 years until July 2012, and included several actions. Some of them, they're still valid today. We created a website, we created some posters, leaflets, some videos to explain in a humorous way what the citizens, what the passengers' rights are. We created a figure called the ambassador of the campaign. I know that you are aware that it is Mrs. Meglena Kuneva, the former commissioner on consumer rights, that has been campaigning the last 3-4 years to the capitals, explaining or trying to raise awareness on passenger rights, not only to national authorities, but through transport organization, companies, and all the actors involved in the sector. You may remember these are one of the posters, some of the posters of the first campaign. Is the campaign that lasted until 2012. This is the on your right, on your left, you got the one created for the flight, for the air sector, and on your right, you got the one we created for the passengers with reduced mobility, because this is also important in our in our policy. In 2013, we launched a new campaign. The campaign was over, and we thought, and we still think that it is, we need more awareness. You saw the figures, only 34% of passengers are aware of their rights, and we continued with the past experience, and let's say we try to improve what we did before. It's taking into account that we were already in the middle of the crisis, and the resources that or the efforts put this time are half of the ones of the first campaign. But many of the actions were already running, and were running well. And what we did is to include the new regulations to the waterborne, passengers traveling by ship, and passengers traveling by bus and coach. Means it's a new campaign. It's in all EU official languages, which is a real challenge. Try to communicate in 24 now EU languages, and it was launched in June 2013 with several actions in several transport premises. It was in Warsaw Airport, in Brussels Midi train station, where actions in different capitals, and we are in the middle of this campaign, which continues doing with the same, more or less the same. Let me check because I lost some of the same actions. The website, the smartphone application that Mr. Georgiev mentioned is going quite well. We created new videos. We enter into the Facebook and Twitter era. We have to communicate with passengers in different ways, and we are still keeping the written material. And this is quite important because some stakeholders, some people are telling us, why are you, let's say, in between brackets, wasting paper in doing posters and leaflets? And our answer is that because people still, not everybody is still in the web or the internet era. Many people relying on written information. And of course, it's not the most important thing of the campaign, the posters and leaflets, but it's something that makes the campaign visible. And many people rely on this information. Let me. Sorry, I got some technical problems too. Okay. These are some of the new posters we have created for this campaign that in principle should be displayed in all transport premises. This is for the train and for the bus. We continue to use the humorous way, at least, to catch the eye of the passenger, and we include, as you see, the QR codes for downloading the smartphone application for those who got the possibility. These are the posters for the ship and for the flight. For the flight, you may see that it's quite similar to the old one, because we rely on the success that is got in the airports, which is also quite difficult to place the information. We got one for the lost luggage and one for the travel delayed. As you see in the middle, we are going to distribute more than 20,000 posters until 2015. It's summer 2015 will last this new campaign. We also have this on the left side. You could see posters with more detailed information, a summary of the regulations. Very briefly, these posters have been done in coordination with some of the national authorities, the wording, and with some of the transport organizations, in order to help us to distribute the message. On the right side, you see a sample of the leaflets. It's the air leaflet that still keeps some important information for passengers. Let me see if I could go to the next one because something happened. Okay. And okay, some of the actions we've been doing this new campaign is we've participated in some public events like the one that we are doing now. We continued with Mrs. Meglena Cuneva as a passenger rights ambassador and traveling to countries. I think we traveled already 23 countries. We still have 4 more member states to go. More than 80 meetings we have in the last 4 years, and we rely also in other EU institutions and on national authorities of member states. Also, we try to coordinate with all transport organizations to do what? Exchange information, to participate in events, and of course to spread the news, because it's not enough that the Commission tries to get information, but to share all the information on passenger rights. This is some of the things that I've been explaining or I've been talking about, and there are three key issues. So for us, the most important is that it is not enough adopting legislation at EU level, but 2 things. I only mentioned raising awareness on passenger rights, but Mr. Georgiev mentioned before, it's a question of enforcement. Enforcement, I think, is one of the key issues for the future. If we cannot see that and you see me. I was saying that enforcement is probably one of the key issues for the future. The Commission is quite open and eager to share with all of you all the possibilities to do whatever you are organizing, like this event today, or any other event where we could try to promote passenger rights, because this is a real challenge. I think the enforcement, and you are aware that the air regulation is still being negotiated within the Council. We probably, for the future, there will be a revision of the rail regulation, and this is something that we have to try to deal with, and to continue this task of raising awareness on passenger rights. And this is all for now. I'm open to any questions or any comments that we could do.
Thanks to you, Pedro. Thanks a lot for your presentation. It's very clear the commitment of the European institution in this field. I have just a question in order to better understand, according to the European Commission, according to the DG Move, which should be the commitment of the civic society, of the consumer organization, of the association linked with the topic of mobility and transport in the framework of the European campaign starting last year, and it will finish the next year. We know that, for example, your passenger right at hand is a very important European campaign, but the campaign is led by a communication agency more than many stakeholders, like should be the association and so on. We like to understand, I know we spoke a lot in the past according to this point, why we don't try to better integrate it, the add value of the civic organization, to widespread this the passenger right in general, according with the communication agency in general. And this is a point, of course, useful for my organization, but I think also for the others association that are now online with us. So if you can say something about this, thank you, Pedro.
Yes, thank you very much, Mariano. This is something that, well, you all know that the last few years the Commission, there's a policy of externalize almost, let's say, everything. And then I well remember the first campaign, or the first, it was done inside, in-house, by the Commission, but after that, everything is done by a contractor, that there's a call for tender, and then there's a company that, in principle, leads the Commission to all the actions. We are try to supervise everything, and we do it. But we got both ways open. You've got a straight direct line with us, with the Commission, with myself, or any of my colleagues in the unit, in the passenger rights unit, to any initiative we could do together, or you could go to our communication company that takes care of all the actions. All the actions that we can do, they are in the framework that I explained in my presentation, because this is what can be done by the company and by us. And in terms of involvement, as I said, we have half of the budget that we had in the past, and we try to maximize and to include all the organizations, citizens, transport companies in this campaign. Because this is not a Commission's campaign; it's a campaign for all Europeans. And I think we all, sooner or later, we are travelers, we are passengers in our lives, and having to benefit from it, right, is quite important. And that's why I may say that maybe we are in some cases more reactive than proactive, because it's really also to the human resources, but we are a small team, very eager to, or very committed to passenger rights. And this is what we offer to you. We offer an open channel to discuss anything, any initiative, and to see how we could put it into
Okay, thanks again, Pedro. Well, I don't know if the other online discussant have some question for the representative of the European Commission. If not, we can go ahead in order to present an widespread European research carried out by my organization and seven organizations last year in order to better understand the challenges of the European citizens' mobility from a civic point of view. So I want to introduce you my presentation, and later I want to share my presentation with you first, if it's possible. With me a little. Non si visualizza. No, ma non, ecco, questo devo fare così, no? Devo fare condivisione schermo. Wait some moment in order to introduce my presentation. Okay. Now I share my presentation. I can start. Well, last year we have carried out a project. Do you see my presentation, please? Rado, do you see my presentation or not? No. No. Now? Now do you see my presentation? Probably. Probably yes. No. Now? Do you see or not my presentation? No, I have a problem with my presentation. Ah, si vede. No, questo è... I have shared my presentation. Now? Stai condividendo il schermo, presento tutti. Ok. Okay, just a moment in order to better understand what's happening. But Pedro, I'd like if you can stay with us until the end of my presentation, or whenever you want, of course. You can stay with us. Okay. Later you are, of course, free to say hello to us, because I know you have a lot of important event today. So, I don't know if the online discussant see my presentation in order I can start with this. Rado, tu? No? Okay, I will try another, sorry for the inconvenience. Sorry for this inconvenience. Okay, presentation. Again, I have to start with my presentation. Certo, ma è lento il computer, non è che... Si sta caricando. Okay, okay, we try again to share my presentation with all of you. Allora, questo non c'è. No, appena si carica.
Non clicca più, quindi si guarda tutto.
Questo. Se vede qua sì. Deve essere niente. Okay, we try another way in order. If you don't see my presentation, I don't know. Nascondi. Okay, we try. Okay, we have to start with to introduce the main data collected over the years, over last year in 8 countries. What we have done, we have realized, we have worked in 8 countries in order to better understand the needs of citizens according to 4 European challenges on mobility: the social, sustainability, accessibility to transport in terms of presence or absence of alternatives to private individual mobility, architectural barriers, and so on. Environmental sustainability, issues relating to the environmental impact of Do you listen me? From Slovakia, from Belgium, from Romania? Okay. So, even if you don't listen my presentation, sorry for this inconvenience. I have to go on. So, the interviews, we have carried out more than 4,000 interviews to citizens. The interviews were addressed to passenger travelers and commuters using the public transport, railway station, bus stops. I don't know, I listened a lot of noise. Oh, I don't know what. For us, it's a little bit difficult to go on because there's a lot of noise. So if you listen me, I go on. Okay. The data collected have no statistical value, but provide a picture in the field of mobility and transport through the data collected by citizens and civic organizations. The methodology was inspired by the method of the civic information, defined as the capacity for organized citizens to produce and use information to promote their own policies and participate in public policy making, in the phase of definition and implementation as well as that of evaluation. According to this method, when citizens, despite their presumed lack of competence in the public sphere, organize themselves and take action together regarding public policy, they are able to produce and use information deriving from expert and other sources, as well as from their own direct experience with the issues being addressed. The activity realized with the support of the Europe for Citizens program of the European Union was coordinated by my organization and takes advantage of the collaboration of the partners from Romania, from Spain, Lithuania, Bulgaria, Portugal, Slovakia, Serbia, and Spain. Now, before to share the main data, by civic consultation, it's important to clarify the characteristic of this civic consultation. It's a survey of the needs of European citizens' mobility and their point of view. It's a picture of regular daily movement and long-distance journey. It's also an occasion to reduce the gap between European citizens and European institutions. Finally, as we hope, it's also an example of civic information and citizens' interest in civic participation. An example for our capacity to analyze critical situations, identify solutions, and formulate recommendations. At the same time, what is not this work? It isn't a comparison among countries. For the reason we do not present any ranking of countries. The focus is the point of view of European citizens, and countries are back. It isn't a statistical research, even if we believe this kind of civic information can have a great relevance. It isn't a spot of several civic associations, because most of these are daily involved with the issues of mobility and transport, even if their commitment is mainly at national or local level more than at European level. So, the main data, the survey of the needs of European citizens' mobility and their point of view was involved 4,100 people from 299 cities in 8 countries. The survey analyzed both regular and daily movements and long-distance journey. It means more than 250 kilometers. The journey is within the national borders and abroad too. About it, the 72% of the European citizens involved traveled long distance during the last year. And beside traveling within the national borders, 60% of them made at least one trip abroad during the past 2 years, 55% to another European country and 11% outside Europe. Well, respondents were mainly adult citizens between 31 to 50 years old, as well as citizens between 51 to 70 years of age. In general, the majority of respondents were women with a high level of education and had a job. Most of them, 67%, lived in a small mid-sized town. 1 out of two is close to local public transport services, but far from the train station. I try again to share my presentation. No, okay. Talking about the regular and daily movements, for instance, journey, home work, home school, to accompany the family and so on. In general, commuting is very short for 24% of the respondents, short for 41%, long for 27%. Other 8% are forced to travel long distance every day. It means more than 50 kilometers a day. Travel times obviously are related to distance. Therefore, 30% of the journeys are less than 30 minutes. 38 are between 30 minutes and 1 hour, and the rest are over 1 hour. Now, some information related the means of transport change according to the type of journey. First of all, the number of respondents who travel by foot is constant and significant, never less than 23%, with peaks reaching 28%. As you know, Eurobarometer confirms cars are still the dominant means of transport in Europe, but the pattern is changing. The average European traveled almost more than 9,000 kilometers by car 4 years ago. That is 100 kilometers less than 10 years ago. Our survey confirms the car is the main means of transport, even if it explains how its use is quite different. It's less used to go to work and more for other reasons. As regards urban transport, the situation is actually the opposite. Bus and tram are used more for return journeys to work, to school, or to go to school. The car is also often chosen out of habit, and therefore there is a space for a change in attitude, particularly in the case of highly pollution engines and on condition that real alternatives are available. The bicycle is favored by 7% of European citizens, so its use is recommended by local authorities, which show that having more cycles lanes, it could become an option. On the contrary, carpooling and car sharing are both second, last options, sometimes used for home work journey. This trend is also confirmed by the lack of recommendation in this respect by local authorities. Well, what is behind the choice of the means of public transport? European citizens choose taxi and underground because are very fast, while they prefer urban bus and local train because are cheaper. European citizens choose taxi and urban bus if there aren't other options. At the same time, traffic congestion is the main reason of the European citizens may decide not to choose taxi, urban bus, car sharing or carpooling. For European citizens, the main enemies of the local trains are delays and poor hygienic condition. Otherwise, often people with reduced mobility cannot access to underground. Even if you don't choose, you don't see my presentation, we can add this in the online our web page. Other information related is civic research. Also for long distance journey within the country, car are the main means of transport. Questo è il pubblico. Okay. Obviously, for journeys abroad, air travel is more widespread, even if traveling for health reason is done more by car. Also significant is the use of long distance buses. Perché così no, diventa, si appesantisce troppo. Mandarlo via 1000, ma no, perché questo ci impiega un quarto d'ora finché lo fa. Regarding long distance journeys, both within the national borders and abroad, European citizens find common problems, delay and high cost related to different means of transport, even if they consider their train more comfortable, bus the cheapest and plane the fastest one. Now we have collected some information related to the passenger right. Another scope of the survey is to understand the level of information of citizens and therefore indirectly their ability to safeguard their passenger rights concerning the main transport services as foreseen in the directive emanated for their protection. It's important to remember that this activity has been carried out within the European Year of Citizens 2013, in which the European institutions often and in many ways have encouraged the dissemination of information regarding citizens' rights at European level. To enjoy and know what kind of travelers you are, we have realized an online quiz to find out if you are able to better protect your rights as passengers, if your daily choice in mobility are sustainable, how important transport is in Europe and what steps the Europe is taking in this field. The resulting data do not seem to be encouraging, even if we are not very surprised, not only because these safeguards have only recently been reinforced and in many cases are far from being implemented by national laws, but also because we believe there is a lack in communication campaign promoted by the institutions. Talking about the air travel, when asked in case of denied boarding, what should the airline do? The right answer is, it must first appeal to people who voluntarily might give up their reservations. This was the answer given by 38% of the respondents, whereas 43% believed that the company could decide according to the booking order and 17% believe instead that the airline could arbitrarily choose who won't not be permitted to board. Passenger right and train travel. The answer to the question regarding the delay for which full refund could be claimed was correctly answered by 50% of the respondents, over 60 minutes. 24% believed that reimbursement could be claimed for delays over 90 minutes and 24% of the respondents over 1 hour and 20 minutes. Long distance buses. The right for refunds is applied after 120 minutes delay behind the scheduled departure. Only 26% of the respondents was aware of this. Passenger right and river and sea transport. The data reflect essentially those for long distance buses. Refunds are applied after 90-minute delay behind the scheduled departure, and only 25% of the respondents answered correctly. What does data mean? Mainly, A more intensive action regarding information to citizens is needed, involving as much as possible also those subjects in the civil society who operate for the salvaguard of citizens' rights. For this reason, we confirm to the European Commission our full availability to actively cooperate in the communication campaign Your Passenger Right at Hand. Moreover, the intention to increase the level of information, the knowledge of one's right, is widespread among the European citizens. Now, the last information are related to the social responsibility. The following information will help to position the sample of people interviewed according to the responsibilities the various actors would have in promoting and adopting new models for sustainable mobility. Who is responsible for all of this? Firstly, public administrators. Secondly, we, citizens. And thirdly, businesses. But public transport companies in particular have a clear and direct responsibility to involve citizens in monitoring the quality of services provided, as well as the public authorities, required to consult further with citizens in the process of definition and evaluation of mobility urban plans, which is still far from being implemented in many cities. The last point is the urban mobility and civic participation. The majority of the European citizens, 59%, do not know if their own towns are an urban mobility plan or not, while 21% do not know answered that this plan has never been adopted, which speaks volumes about the delay of many municipalities. Probably it's important to remember that citizens' organization, which includes consumer association, group of commuters, of bikers, of pedestrians, network at local, national level, play an essential role in the development of the mobility policies. Civic organizations at local level can educate and support citizens to better protect their passenger rights and strengthen their knowledge about duties, while networks as umbrella organizations contribute in the policy making at the national and the European level. So, I hope you have listened, not see my presentation. I repeat, this was a widespread project carried out over last year with the help and the cooperation of many civic associations. If you don't have any question about this data, let me know about it. If you have some comments about this data. If not, I can introduce the other discussion. I'm so glad to take the floor to Irina Zamfirescu. She comes from Romania, working in the association called Active Watch. She's a social researcher. She has been involved in human rights project for the last 7 years concerning issues of media ethics, public participations, good governance, urban development. And now she works for Active Watch Association and is involved in European project Advance related with mobility. So, if she is ready to talk, we are ready to listen. Irina, are you ready? Chiudi questo. E chiudi anche la presentazione. Irina.
Hello, can you hear me now?
Yes, now.
Sorry. Thank you for having us, the Romanian. I'll try to my presentation for you here. Just a second. Is this okay for you? We can see it? You can see the presentation? Okay, I shall begin with a very small presentation of Bucharest, which is the capital of Romania. But the main characteristic, which is very relevant for this discussion, it's its density. We are more than 800 people per square kilometers, which is very highly crowded city. Even though officially we are just 2 million people, unofficially we reached 3 million people last year. And according to researchers, by 2060 we will be 4 million. Therefore, we kind of need urgent measures for transportation in Bucharest. Statistics again, we have in 2013 1.12 million cars registered in Bucharest, and what's more, besides these registered cars, we have a surplus of 1 million cars which are transiting the Bucharest. Because as you will see later on in the presentation, Bucharest it's a city that connects two important highways in Romania, and drivers are forced to drive through the city of the Bucharest to go from one highway to another. The main causes. Summing up the situation in Bucharest, I think it's fairly fair to say that this is a city designed mainly for cars, unfortunately. The main causes for this are, first of all, it's a rather public administration still has the vision of very big streets, of widening the streets for cars. So the trends, the European trends of designing more and more spaces for pedestrian, it's rather shy, and it's at its beginning in the public authorities' public policies now. We have shopping malls within the city, so people on daily basis go to and fro these shopping malls by cars. We have very highly concentrated offices areas. This happens both in the center of the city and at the north part of the city. This causes a lot of traffic in the morning and in the afternoon, at the beginning and at the end of the working hours. What's more, the person who are designing these public office buildings are not very into creating parking spaces for the employees. Therefore, we have a very bad situation with the parking in Bucharest, as you will see later on. On the other hand, we have this policy of facilitating the traffic. The traffic lights, for example, are coordinated so that the cars should have a green light if the driver is to respect the maximum speed. Therefore, there are the time for pedestrian to cross the street is rather short for persons with mobility issues, so as elderly or persons with disabilities. But recently, I think that for 2 years now, the public authorities have very shy beginning to design project for pedestrian, and this happened mainly, I think, of the civil society in Bucharest. As you will see, we are kind of active on the field of sustainable mobility. As for public transportation, I think that the most important thing, the most positive thing, it's relatively cheap transportation in Bucharest. But on the other hand, we in Bucharest have very tiny dedicated lines to public transport. So I think that we are kind of only 4 routes that have these dedicated lines. Therefore, the public transportation is very often stuck in traffic, as you can see in the picture, with the rest of the cars. So on the other hand, because of this, because we are lacking these dedicated lines, we cannot predict the time that the public transportation is to come into the station. On the other hand, we have conducted some studies, some interviews with people with disabilities in more cities in Romania, and all of them, unfortunately, told us that the drivers of public transportation do not have the training and of helping the people with disabilities to access the public transportation. Another issue are the station. The state which they are presenting now in Bucharest is rather precarious. A person with the problems of mobility often do not have benches to sit on while waiting for the public transportation, and are exposed to summer or to weathering, to any weather conditions. One important problem, a very major problem, is that public transportation nodes do not provide a quality transfer. Often people must go by foot very big distances between this public transportation, and as you'll see, walking by foot in Bucharest is not that easy. So for pedestrian, one of the biggest problem, as it has been presented within our research, is the cars which are parked on the sidewalk. We have a legislation that allows this. It says that the driver must leave at least 1.5 meters for pedestrian. Despite this, very, very rarely this is respected. The public authorities and the police often say that the situation is so serious that they cannot, they do not have the sufficient force and people to give fines to these drivers. Therefore, the situation is perpetuous, and it has been for many years in Romania. On the other side, we have a lot of furniture that is on the sidewalk, or the quality of the sidewalk is often it's very bad, and this is very dangerous for the person with disabilities, the person in wheelchair, and for the elderly who doesn't sit so well. For the people with mobility issues, it's fair for us to say that, and this is something that the City Hall publicly admitted 2 months ago, in Romania we do not, in Bucharest, we do not have one street which is accessible for all kinds of disabilities according to the laws that we have here. The biggest problem, except for the cars which are parked on the sidewalk, are the curbstones, which we have an obsession in Bucharest with changing very often the curbstones. These curbstones are too high for a person in a wheelchair to move across in the city independently. So they must always be assisted by someone. Another important problem in Bucharest is that in this obsession of facilitating the car transit within the city, the authorities are very keen on the idea of making underground crossings for pedestrians. Even though this underground crossing do have a platform for persons with disabilities, they in most of the time are not functioning. And what's more, I don't know if you can see this image, this is the hottest spot in Bucharest. It's the center of the city. For a person with disability to cross this street, which it has this underground crossing, even though the distance is 40 meters, a person with disabilities in a weekend day, when they do not have access to the platform, because the platform is key activated by the public authority staff and they do not work during the weekend. So the person with disabilities have to cross this intersection on the ground, and they have to go approximately 1 kilometer, which is very a long distance for a person in a wheelchair. As for alternative transportation, the bicycle issue is a very hot topic in Bucharest. Within 2008 and 2011, the public authorities have designed 150 kilometers of bicycle lanes, but ever since 2011, at the pressure of the civic society in Romania, the bicycle community is one of the strongest in Bucharest and most active. 19% of these bicycle lanes were declared to be illegal by the police. So now we are forbidden, according to the law, to walk on these bike lanes. As you can see from the picture, they are, the bike lanes have been designed very poorly in Bucharest. Currently, the City Hall is trying to have a new project on the bicycle lanes, but we are kind of reluctant that they will do a good job, because the mayor, after several protests in Bucharest, declared that he strongly refuses, and the idea of making these lines on the streets, because he doesn't want to count the deaths. Even though in Romania the boulevards and most of the streets of the space designated to the cars, it's very wide, so there wouldn't be such a big problem to design these lanes on the streets. Main issues with the bicycle lanes, as they were designed in the past, they were 100% on the sidewalk. There were situations when the lines covered 100% the sidewalk, so we had to go by bicycle, pedestrian by foot, persons with disabilities in their wheelchair. We all had to share the same space. This created many conflicts within the citizens of the pedestrians of Bucharest. The lanes are not continuous. They are they are frequently interrupted by trees or kiosk or urban furniture. So the bike lane just stops in front of all these elements in the city. On the other hand, one major issue, and we are in the mobility week, so this is the moment to mention it. In Bucharest, there never have been a public information campaign on the mobility. The City Hall, the City Hall of Bucharest subscribed to the Mobility Week this year too, the previous year, with sustaining that they had this kind of campaigns. The previous year we even sent an official letter to the DG Mobility explaining them that the public authorities weren't that honest in their presentation of the situation of Bucharest on the official website of this Mobility Week. We had to do that. Cities' involvement, as I previously told you, one of the biggest local movement in Bucharest is that of the cyclist. We even last year we reproduced the picture with space taken by 60 people on one of the main boulevards in Romania. Ever since 2011, we have two public manifestation marching on bicycles in Bucharest. We had up to 8,000 people participating on this march. So that you understand the public authorities' opinion on our activity on promoting the sustainable urban mobility, none of these public manifestations were considered to be legal, even though we did all the legal procedures. We announced the city hall, the police, that we are going to do that. We were every time where they tried to stop us from going on the streets. Another important event was this June in Bucharest. We had the first marching for pedestrian in Romania, accessible city for all people. We gathered 400 people, we consider to be people with disabilities, people with infants, elder people, pedestrians. So people went on the streets and claimed a city that was mainly for pedestrian, not for the car. One important consequence of this march is that the central authorities approached us after this event, and we are now in discussion to find ways to enforce the laws that protect the pedestrian rights in Romania. As a conclusion, as I previously said, we are rather a city for cars. The public authorities invest rather little money in the spaces that are designed for pedestrian and alternative ways of transportation. Another important factor is that this is a rather generalized situation for Romania. We have some exception, this is true, but overall in Romania, this was the direction of development of the city. A direct consequence of this public space, which is rather not friendly with persons with disabilities, is that we have now only 10% of the people with disabilities that are going to upper schools. During the interviews, they confessed that the main problem for them to go to the high school, upper schools, is that they do not have access to the city. They are 100% depending on their family, and it's rather difficult for them to access the public spaces. And obvious, I think this is a common knowledge for you, according to the World Health Organization, Bucharest is the most polluted of the European Union countries. Therefore, this is and this is kind of strange for a city that has as a mayor it has been having for, I think, 6 years now, a doctor. So this is one of the main reasons that we are now advocating for sustainable urban mobility, because it's a very unhealthy city.
Thanks,
this was all.
In order to finish your presentation, and we have to give the floor to the others online discussant. So just 1 minute more to finish your presentation.
I finished. This was all. If you have questions or comments, I'm here to discuss them.
Okay, thanks Irina. Thanks again. Now we have some a presentation from the third country from the east of Europe, I'm so glad to introduce you Bojana Paunovic. She is a project manager from Consumer Center of Serbia. Consumer Center of Serbia is, it was last year our partner in the European project carried out in 8 countries. So she will talk about the mobility transport, the point of view of citizens in her country. Thanks, Bojana, for your presentation. We are ready to listen to you.
Hello to everyone. I'm calling from Serbia. My name is Bojana Paunovic and I'm speaking on behalf of Consumer Center of Serbia. First of all, let me thank you for sending us an invitation to take a part in the webinar. Due to technical problem, I'm not able to show my presentation, but I'm going to read it. Sorry about that.
We have the same problem, so don't worry about it. At the end of the meeting, I will send all you the presentation, and we will provide to put all the presentation in online webpage. Only the presentation by the European Commission was seen here. So, okay, Pedro, I know.
Okay. Can you hear me?
Yes, please.
Okay. As you know, Consumer Center of Serbia, in cooperation with 7 European organizations, was participating in the project Mobility Paradigm of European Citizenship. It is my duty to share with you the most important results and the most important civil recommendations that we have got in the conducted research in Serbia. Research included 457 participants from all over the Serbia. These are top results that we got. The first one and the most important one is that 71% of the included participants said that they the next one, there is no type of transportation that is mostly used in Serbia. That means that in Serbia there are almost an equal number of pedestrians, 40% of the people, those who use a car in their daily transportation, about 36%, and those who use public transportation, about 45% of the people. The next result, less than 3% of participants use train for their daily trip. Only small amount of people in Serbia use train to travel within own country or abroad. Participants are not familiar with the possibilities of rail travel abroad. Railroads are generally less popular as an option because of the experience that participants have with the local railways. When it comes to public transportation, most people usually complain on traffic congestion, delays, rude staff on the board, lack of service, poor hygienic conditions, etc. The next result, which is also very important, since Serbia has the status of candidate for European Union accession, people in Serbia are very interested in European citizens' rights. Most of the people are interested in European Union policy making. And the last one, but not the least, people said that there is no payment service online. That causes a lot of problems because people cannot pay or book tickets online. When it comes to civil recommendations, these are most important. The first one, it is important to raise awareness among citizens about the importance of free movement throughout the media, education campaign. It is necessary to make people aware, explain the ways of improving the mobility. It is necessary to organize a public forum on the same topic and take concrete steps to bring it closer to the citizens' ideas about the importance of this type of mobility. It is also very important to establish educational centers within schools and business in order to increase public awareness of the need to enhance mobility. Also, we need more educational programs in schools about the importance of environmental protection and how each people can contribute to the betterment. The second one is active media campaign. National government needs to be more involved in promoting environmental protection and mobility, and for that reason more active campaign is needed. The national government needs to be pushed to put more effort to promotion of these values and to encourage to respect them using some of the many resources that are available. The third one is no tax on mobility. In Serbia and many other countries, the public transportation service are still under VAT system. The government needs to adopt the tax-free regime for all goods that helps mobility and environmental protection. Public transportation should also be exempt from the tax system in order to reach cheaper prices of the transportation services that would encourage citizens to use more public transportation versus private cars. The fourth one, we need the reduction of fuel taxes for public transportation. One of the biggest causes why the public transportation is sometimes very expensive are high fuel taxes. Fuel prices by itself usually are not so expensive as the fuel with taxes making the fuel prices very high. Fuel taxes are usually going from 50% to 80%, what is the case in Serbia too. For that reason, fuel taxes need to be subject of change for some categories as public transportation in order to decrease public transportation service prices and to gain more users of public transportation. The fifth one, we need to upgrading the existing infrastructure and increase the infrastructure and facilities in the city, which include something like more parking lines, increase the number of bus stops, we need to increase the number of bike trails, we need to make the vehicles of public transportation more comfortable. Also, we need to establish something like a call center that would in real time receive complaints and comments of the citizens to public transport service. We also need more traffic signals for pedestrians, something like more traffic lights with push button for pedestrians with minimum waiting time for green light, and etc. The next one recommendation is subway. Subway is something that I need to point out because, as you know, in Belgrade there is no subway. Construction of the subway will be one of the biggest challenges for Belgrade in this and next decade. More than 2 million of people live in Belgrade and more than 1 million is using public transportation, and only underground rapid transit rail system can take the pressure because it is the faster and the most efficient way of public transportation today. The next one, I need to mention river traffic. More attention needs to be paid on river traffic. Serbia has 4 rivers where the river passengers and cargo traffic can be performed. River traffic can be a very important part of public transportation, but for that there are some preconditions that government has to ensure and to regulate in that area, and some of these requires it. The river public transportation cannot function without, and the river gas station and the river passenger station. This is a very big problem for every Serbian city that is located near the river or the river is passing through. Although lying on the 2 rivers, Belgrade, the capital of the city of the Serbia, still has no fuel station that would make it possible for owners fill the tank while live. And the last one that I'm going to mention is modernization of the Serbian railroad. Serbian railroad needs to be modernized and rail traffic in general promoted. Currently, the rail cars are outdated and the railroads very old. What is the main for the citizens in Serbia avoid rail traffic? The rail traffic. Generally, the quality of the rail transportation needs to be improved. In order to be brief, in fact, some themes, although significant when speaking of mobility, have not been treated. So that would be all from Serbia. Thank you for listening.
Thanks, Bojana. Thanks a lot for your presentation. It seems that the problems you show are often widespread in many other countries, to be honest, so it's also important to have at this point. Well, now the webinar goes with a section in which 3 discussants will share how to promote the protection of passenger rights in the framework of the European Mobility Week, but of course, first of all, at the European level. The first one, if it's online, is Pavel Pavlokin from the European Consumer Center from Slovakia. He is a legal advisor for European Consumer Center in his countries, and he will talk about the role of the ACC net in the field of mobility and transport. Later we'll have the presentation of the 2 discussants who will stay here in Rome with us. So, first of all, Pavel, it's your turn, so we are ready to listen. Thanks in advance.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Dear ladies and gentlemen, let me introduce myself. My name is Pavel Pavlokin, and I'm working as a legal advisor in European Consumer Center in Slovakia. We are in the capital of Slovakia, Bratislava. I'm pleased. The role of the European Consumer Center network. I think the topic is very actual and interesting. As Mariana said, I was asked to give you a short presentation about the work of European Consumer Center network and about our experience with transport issues.
Okay.
My presentation is divided into 5 sections. This is ECCNet, activities of ECCNet, APR complaints, and I will provide you with the information about our application ECCNet Travel. At first, I will introduce you ECCNet. The European Consumer Center network was established in 2005. Aim of the network is to promote consumer confidence in order the consumer feel to safe while shopping goods and services on our internal market. Network is covering the whole European Union, as well as Norway. So it means there are 30 centers in member states, Iceland and Norway, and which cooperate together. Most of the ECCs, consumer centers, are governmental. For example, in Slovakia, we are part of Consumer Protection Department at the Ministry of Economy. But some countries, especially in Western countries, ECCs are NGOs. Network is co-financed by European Union, and countries take part in some scheme. And our services are therefore free of charge. So consumers don't pay for our services. ECC is neutral party of the complaint or of the consumer's complaint. I will give you a quick look of eligible complaints. So consumers may turn to ECC Slovakia, and his cross-border dispute cannot be solved between him and mentioned foreign trader. Among other things, when consumer got final statement from trader that the claim is rejected. Typical case is when a consumer cannot reach an amicable solution on his own, he can contact ECC Slovakia. And we share the case with the particular center in the country of the trader. Have any tools to support consumers, judicial process, or legal path in public administration procedures. We also can provide them with the information on European, for example, European payment burden procedure or European small claim procedure. The most basic of our work is to provide advices to consumers about their consumer rights. They can send us an email or a letter. They can even visit us in person. So we really try to be accessible for them. Consumers are asking us about the national legislation of our resident country and about the European Consumer Protection Law as well. You can also inform them about law of other member states because the communication between the centers is very close. So it is not a problem for us to pick up the phone and call our colleagues and ask them about their law or their experience, or if it's a word to handle this issue with this trader, because sometimes they really experience that it's better to recommend consumers to court. There are also, can you see my presentation? There are some statistics. We have statistics already also from 2013, but I assume that you can see only our statistics from 2012. So I will give you a short overview. So in 2012, whole network was contacted by 72,000 contacts. In comparison with the year 2013, there is increase to 80,000 contacts. There is also in 2012 there was 32,197 cross-border complaints, and in 2013 more than 32,500 complaints. When we go further, you can see air passenger rights. There are some statistics. So as you can see, the numbers of passenger rights remain a hotspot in cross-border consumer complaints. And this solution proposed by many airlines are not entirely satisfactory, as they do not take into account all the legal provisions that should be applied. So in particular, Montreal Convention Regulation 261/2004 and the Court of Justice of the European Union case law, especially Stern and Nelson. As far as we know, Commission has been working now on air passenger rights revision. So the regulation will be revised. New proposal should remove legal gray areas. For example, lacking definitions and unclear provisions in the text of regulation, which have led to inconsistencies and loose standards in the application of the law. Air passenger rights so the main, what are the reasons of the APR compliance? This is from the point of view of ECC Slovakia, but mostly delayed flights, flight cancellation, lost luggage, and delay luggage issues. These are the main reasons. Therefore, ECC Slovakia welcomes the decisions of the Court of Justice of the European Union, which help us to handle issues. Court of Justice confirmed in earlier jurisdiction, Yuri Sturgeon case, that passengers whose flights are cancelled, passengers whose flights are delayed may be treated for the purposes of the application of the right to compensation. So they have passengers whose flights are delayed may have the same rights if the delay is takes more than 3 hours as passengers whose flights has been cancelled. This decision was confirmed by in the case Nelson, and this decision is welcomed by the European Net, as it confirms and strengthens the consumer's rights to compensation when encountering flight delay. Despite the fact ECC Net has despite the case law, ECC Net still has faced to obstacles from some flight companies while enforcing or while trying to reach an amicable solution. Our latest activity is application ECC Net Travel app. It was released in June 2014. You can download application from Android market, Apple market, Microsoft market. It doesn't matter which operation system do you have on your mobile phone. You can download it. It's free of charge, and it's meant to be a travel companion inside the European Union, as well as in Iceland and Norway. It helps consumers to overcome difficult situations abroad and exercise their consumer rights in the language of their destination country. So this provides assistance in 26 languages. And as the topic of this webinar is public transport, you may use this application in difficult situations which may occur when travel by train, bus, airplane, and even ship or ferry. So you can. There is a list of possible situations which can occur, and you can show on your mobile phone counter side what is your proposal to solution. What is your solution proposal? So this we have positive feedback to this application, and figures from the issues look really good. That it means that consumers have already downloaded this application and have positive feedback from the consumers. That we are trying to keep it updated, and we are currently working on revision of the application. We want to add some new functions. So I don't know the date of the update, but we are really working on it.
Okay, thanks, Pavel.
If you have any questions, so citations, and if you have any questions, you can contact us, or I can respond to your questions now.
Thanks, Pavel, also for your sharing the new tools for citizens, the new app. Now it's time. I'm so glad to introduce you Valentina Mayer. She's a lawyer. She's here in Rome with us, and she works for the Belgian association called European Citizens Action Services, and it's a pleasure for me to introduce her. So, Valentina, please.
Thank you, Mariano. I think my presentation is not...
Okay.
Okay, while we see if the presentation can be downloaded, I'll give you a few information about my work for Your Europe Advice. I'm a lawyer and I work as a legal expert for this service that is provided by the European Commission under contract with ECAS, European Citizen Action Service. So I work for them as an independent legal expert, and this service is organized for the Commission since a very long time, almost 12 years now. And before that, it was already provided under another name, which was European Citizen Signpost Service. This name gives you a little bit the idea of what the service is about, because mainly the service is organized for the public, for the European citizens, and also for European enterprises operating in Europe. And it is intended as a team of legal experts, of lawyers, that are intended to cover all European services.
Yes.
It works, okay. Okay, so as you can see from the slides, there is like this poster that is quite representative of the service. So you see someone, okay, you don't see it. So I'll explain you what the poster is about. You can see a person that is drowning into questions. So we are intended to provide this citizen that is going under all this huge amount of questions a hand. So there is also like this kind of inflatable that is helping the citizen to, you know, come up from these questions and have some sort of support from the European Commission in this case. And so basically the citizens can ask questions about their individual problems. So the main idea is that if you have a problem and you need legal support on this problem, always regarding mobility. So we cover, as we can see, we're gonna see later, all the areas that are going that are impacting the citizen while is traveling or living or just doing business in Europe. And we provide the answer in every European official language. So the citizen, for example, EU citizen living in Italy, it can be exactly EU citizen coming from all over Europe, or it can have, for example, questions. It can be also extra EU citizen, but have some rights deriving from European law. So if, for example, is a member of a family of a EU citizen, and we provide the answer in by email or by telephone. So we are ECAS is where the managing team is sitting in Brussels, but the European the legal experts are sitting all over Europe, and we provide the service in remote. So we don't have an office in every European country, but we're sitting everywhere in Europe, and we provide the answer either by email or by telephone. And so the inquiries also can be asked by email or by telephone, and the citizen chooses the mean of the reply, so telephone or email. And we are increasing the number of replies every year. So I have only the figure for 2011. We replied 12,000 times, and I know for sure that also in 2012 and 2013 the replies have increased even more. So I have here like a graphic showing which are the subject areas that are covered by the service. Okay, so we are replying questions about social security, residence, work, entry procedures, motor vehicles, taxes, studies and training, and so on. So regarding mobility, you can see that the figure you have to see, these are figures a bit old, but it gives you an idea of how the questions are split by subject. Entry procedures is covering, of course, all the issues regarding mobility, so documents, but also traveling in Europe. And also, if you see, there is a figure for other consumer issues. There are numbers of questions regarding, of course, consumers' rights, and in this case, these are relevant for traveling. Of course, the citizen is also a consumer, especially when it comes to air or road or train transport. The inquiries, of course, are employed person, unemployed, self-employed, retired, or just consumers that are intending to have services within the European Union. Very important is to understand that we operate as a back office. We are covered under this portal. So the portal, you probably know it because it's quite advertised in the institutional websites, and also in other national institutions have a link always to your Europe website. And the website, of course, is containing many information about working, residence, and so on. And there is also a very important section about travel, where you see these subsections about documents, passenger rights, money issues, safety, package travel, and so on. So from this website, if you surf in this website, if you don't find exactly the information you need, there is at the end, at the bottom of every page, there is a link where the Commission is asking, do you need further assistance or advice? Then you are sent to an inquiry form. In the case of travel, for example, there is this inquiry form that the citizen can fill in with his name and details, and then the citizen can specify what is his problem. In the field of travel, for example, he can have a problem of mobility, and the inquiry form is sent through our web database to the individual expert that is able to deal with the question. So in my case, for example, I deal with questions for Italy. So I receive questions from European citizens living in Italy or traveling to Italy, or vice versa, the Italian citizens that travel abroad that need a specific reference to the EU law, but also know how EU law is applied in the national state, in the national legislation, and also which are the national entities that can help the citizen in this specific case. Or you have, of course, a direct access. So you have, if the citizen knows the service, can have, direct access to the web page where is requested to fill the information he needs and the information we need actually to help him, and he can give specific reference to his problem. So we always deal, this is very important to understand, that we always deal with specific cases. So we don't give answers to how the legislation is applied in some specific field, but we need to have like a citizen is in trouble and wants to know what are his rights, and most of all what his rights and how, which is the other institution that can help him in the specific case. So in case of traveling, for example, we give always like the reference to the EU form for complaining in case of denied boarding or package travel, so on. Or we give like information about how to complain. So for example, we can give information about how to complain at the EU level, but most of the times we give information on how to complain at the national level, because the citizen, of course, sometimes doesn't know which institution is able to help him. So we have to tell him, okay, in this case you need to complain against this institution, or first, for example, you have to send a formal letter to the airline or the railway company, and after we explaining step by step which are the steps to enforce his rights. So these are the links to, you will be given the presentation, so you will be able to have the links to the Europe Advice form. And very important, maybe this I have to add, I didn't put the phone number. There is a free number that the citizens, but also like associations or other entities that are interested in, that know citizens and know their problems, and they want to send the query on behalf of the citizen, they can always contact this free number. And then there is a Europe Direct people that are filling the information, filling in the information about the case and send the question to us. So we operate in the background. So these are some typical questions, but most importantly, I want to focus on the questions we receive on mobility and on traveling within the EU. For example, in case of passenger rights by air, rail, ship, bus or coach, as you all know, passengers have the right to receive information, assistance, and under certain circumstances, compensation in case of cancellation, long delay, or denied boarding, and so on. So we give the citizen the idea if he has or not right in specific circumstances, because, for example, there can be that the citizen think they have a right to compensation, but maybe his situation doesn't come under the scope of the EU regulation, or, for example, he can miss the deadlines to complain and so on. So we give him all the information about his rights, and we tell him what to do next, and so which is the next step. In case of package holidays, I'll just put down some of the most frequent questions we receive in the field of travel. We receive many information about the package holidays, right to have information, right to cancel with a penalty, liability for the seller for services, and protection if a tour operator or on an airline goes bankrupt. Also, we give information about disability or reduced mobility in order to the citizen not to face discrimination when he's traveling, and we give also information about new legislation. For example, now there is a EU standard model for the parking card that gives the disabled person access to the parking facilities all over Europe. So this is a very frequent question we receive from people. They say, okay, I have this card, I have this pass, can I use it in another EU country? So now the legislation has given in this field more rights to the citizen. And also consular protection, for example. So mobility in a broad sense, we give information about people when they travel abroad, if they can face problems while they're traveling in an extra EU countries, and their country is not represented by the consular or consulate or an embassy. Then the citizen enjoy the same protection if he's going to the EU consulate or embassy of another country. So here I just wanted to give you some, recent cases, just to give you an idea. We received recently a case of a Lithuanian citizen that was flying from the UK to an extra EU country, an island in I guess it's in the Caribbean, and she was working on the basis of her husband's work permit that was containing her name and the name of her son. And the airline denied her boarding based on the fact that she didn't have a return ticket. So she was forced, basically, in order to board, to buy a return ticket that she was not meant to use because she was joining her husband in that third country, and she was not planning to come back. So basically the airline was assuming that she could face some problems at the border, but actually we explained the citizen that the airline didn't have any right to impose this restriction because this is something that only the border authority can do, and so there is no this limit was imposed. It was not coming from the Schengen Borders Code, not coming from the regulation about air traveling. So we advise her to complain against the airline and to ask for a refund because of this denied boarding, and we explain her all the steps to do, how to, in case the airline was not replying, how to seek redress in front of the enforcing body that are sitting in each national country. Then we have very frequent cases of, in this case, for example, UK citizens that had a flight with Air France that was cancelled, and Air France, for example, in this case, they offer only a very limited compensation, I think €200, while in this case, as the traveler was traveling from, I guess, from Abu Dhabi, I think, or yes, from Dubai to UK, she was entitled. Actually, the people were entitled to have a compensation for €600. So we explain what are the rules in this case and how to deal with the airline. So very important is also that we have other tasks besides the reply to the citizens. We also help Solvit centers because the subjects we cover are the same of Solvit centers, and Solvit centers, as you probably know, is another European network that is dealing with problems with administrations. So we provide the Solvit centers when they need the legal support. So they send us their cases and they ask us to give the legal background of the situation, and then they are able, with our replies, to know if another administration is misapplicating the European law, and so they are able also to help the citizen in solving the problems with another administration. Then we participate to other activities. For for example, this seminar is an activity that we do. Some of the is an example of one of the activities we do besides replying the cases. So we participate to seminars, to other events in which the other networks participate. For example, we most of the time participate with the European Consumer Centers Network and with Europe Direct and with all the networks at European level that are providing advice and support to European citizens. And we also, participate to, we also contribute to draft reports for the European Commission. So ECAS very frequently is drafting this report that helps the European Commission to understand better where the citizens face problems. So we like to think that we are also helping the European Commission to focus on the problematic areas and to also to improve the policies in certain areas. So, for example, sometimes we are requested to give our idea in some specific countries about what the situation is for the citizens, and we are able to, with our input, to simulate somehow the Commission to intervene in certain gaps or certain grey areas that can be, you know, improved in the field of the internal market. And we have, of course, a database that is where we work, so we receive the questions in this database, and we also have to fill the database with certain information. And this is a real treasure for the Commission, because it gives also statistic data that are very useful to see how certain areas have improved all over the years, and also how to face new challenges in the single market. And if you want to have more information, there is also a video that has been realized to, you know, for promotional reasons, to give more information about Your Europe Advice and what we do. Of course, there is our website, Your Europe Advice, and also the portal, as I told you, and the inquiry form. And also, if you need specific information about the service, you're always free to contact me on my personal email, and I'll be happy to give you more information. Thank you.
Thanks a lot, Valentina. Congratulations for your work and for this service at the European level. Now there is the first example of a private company in order to provide a way to better protect the citizens and passengers, promoting the alternative dispute resolution, in particular the online dispute resolution. So it's a pleasure for me to introduce Radoslav Bonk. He's the second Slovakian man in this webinar, and is responsible for Justice European International Cooperation with institutions. We had a lot of years experience in the field of the Ministry of Environment in his country. So Radu, thanks a lot for your presentation, and we are ready to listen to you. If you want to come here, or no, you can stay there. You can stay there. Okay.
Try to share my screen.
Rado, come here. Probably it's better if you can come here. Probably. Okay. Okay. No. Try again there. Sorry. Ho chiuso il microfono mio. Okay. Sorry, do you? Okay. Are you ready?
Yes, I'm ready. Can you hear me? Probably. Thank you, Mariano, for the invitation, and thank you for giving us an opportunity to share the ideas what we do in Justice. Justice is a Slovak-based company. It's a Czech and Slovak private company, and we are very active in providing fantastic services to consumers, especially in the area of e-commerce. The idea behind this is very simple. Since the e-commerce is booming and consumers are using e-commerce websites how to buy goods and services, and we are trying to them if they have an issue with their goods or services. In case they buy something and it doesn't come in time, or becomes broken, or the goods damaged, we are simply providing them a platform for contact the retailer, even if the retailer is sick for a country and they do not speak the same language. We are providing them a platform to communicate together, try to solve the issues in their own language, and if they do not succeed in finding a settlement among this issue, any of the parties can escalate the claim to the independent online dispute resolution providers, which are all over the globe, and they have partnered with Justice. We think that Justice is a very helpful tool for consumers, since they can get access to justice, and it's also a very useful tool for a retailer because it's a completely new service for them regarding the citizen, regarding their consumer loyalty and consumer services. We simply think that the ODR is not a second-class justice to citizen, but it's a first-class response to the problems we can find in these days. So we can say that Justice is a global multilingual application for consumer disputes and resolution. It's in a category of so-called trusted services in Europe and on a global basis. And I have already talked about the advantages it provides to consumers, and there are also advantages for the e-shops itself, since Justice can help them physically differentiate from the competition, and simply Justice is promoting the e-commerce sector itself. I would like now to share with you a few thoughts about where are we right now, and especially to share our work in the area of transportation and protection of consumer rights. Justice is more than an application, it's more than software, it's an ecosystem. It's an ecosystem with all its members and with the well-balanced relations among them. Among this ecosystem, we can consider consumers, e-shops or high street shops, and authorities for providing transportation services, car rental services, accommodation, and so on. Then we have ODR providers, consumer services, and online markets and trusters. We think that the Justice is designed in a way that nobody loses when using Justice. Our major focus is in so-called e-commerce sector. That means that we can handle goods or services that were not delivered, or services that were delivered time after scheduled time, damaged goods, goods, and so on. Payment problems. Those are the main services which this application can use, and actually consumer and the retailer are negotiating themselves using this platform
and they can solve the dispute among them. And even if they are not able to solve the dispute, they can escalate the claim to online dispute resolution providers all over the world. And these are reputable institutions who will assess the case, and that the decision is sent to both parties, and they should implement it. I was talking about the e-commerce sector itself, but we are also working on so-called other sector solutions. And those sector solutions, they include hotels and leisure time, transportation services, car rental, and etc., etc. I would like to share you now a few screens from the transportation services. As it was said here before by my colleagues here at the webinar, the citizens should have a right to the transportation provided in a way that they paid for and they have a right to use. We think that the majority of the claims or disputes between the consumer and the service provider can be solved by negotiation. And if they have a possibility to buy a travel ticket online, they should also have a possibility to solve their disputes online as well. We are simply helping them to get an access to justice via online available tools and platforms. Justice is multilingual application. That means that if a German consumer is having a trouble, let's say in a Spain with a Spain e-shop or Spain transportation provider, each of the party can communicate in their own languages using very simple icons which are very easily understandable, and every party is reading the steps in its own language, and there shouldn't be any confusion among the parties that relates to the fact that they can use different mother languages. As you don't see it on a picture, but it will be available to you at the end of the webinar. But Justice is simply designed in a small icons and with a short description of the item, and that should be understandable to both parties. What we have under development right now are transportation issues. With using all the possible transportation issues, we have carefully grouped them into hierarchically higher group, and they involved an items as follows: late arrival or early departure of the train or a public bus, cancelled transportation without providing no reason in advance, defective service, let's say that the environment of the bus or train was not suitable for traveling, or you had a problem with payment, or there was a misleading information from the authority, or you would simply like to provide a feedback on a staff in a bus or a public service regarding their behavior. You simply choose one of or a combination of those items, and you propose your own solution. Simply you provide enough information about what has happened, you propose your solution, and the other party, usually the transportation authority, will act within its regulation and will act to answer you soon. They don't have to read your emails, they don't have to read your paper letters, official letters you send them to, because via authorization on the both sides, they can try to solve your issue online. Imagine a situation that you're traveling from let's say from Slovakia to Italy, and my train to Milano was late, and that's why I have missed my another flight to Sicily and so on. So without trying to speak with the transportation authority at a given place or so on, I can simply choose my mobile, find the affected service, and identify myself and provide a realistic estimation what has happened, and send my request to authority. And then the authority has enough time using their staff to solve the issue and send you either an apology or a certain discount you are you can use within on the same service. Basically, the way how to solve the solutions are only limited by what the consumer wants and the regulations what the transportation authority can provide within this situation. We will be heavily working on those sectorial solutions via Justice, and even right now the Justice is active and in production phase for e-commerce sector only. Within a reasonable time it will be available for transportation and hotels and accommodation if everything goes okay. So and that's basically the end of my presentation I wanted to share with you.
Thanks, Gerardo. Thanks for your experience and for this. The best reason for this, you international platform. The last point